New stuff everywhere. We love new stuff, and Mazda knows it, so they brought the new model, the CX-60. Well, actually, it's a series of new models, because after this comes the CX-70, 80, and 90, even though over here in Europe, mostly we'll only have the CX-80 as well. But anyway, a good-looking new, bigger SUV with lots of new engines. Well, sort of. This is the 2.5-liter four-cylinder one, which we already know, but this is the plug-in hybrid version. So it's also got an electric motor and combined power of over 300 horsepower, which means that this big fella is going to go to 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.8 seconds. Quite nice. Two engines are still coming, completely new engines. Surprise, surprise, they're both 6 cylinders inline. A 3-liter petrol one and a 3.3-liter diesel one. Exciting.
Let's take a look at the exterior. Mazda never really disappoints with that. All modern models have nice lines and interesting details that don't scream at you, but elegantly add to the whole. The front and the rear are still recognizable for the Japanese brand, but have been redesigned for a more imposing look, which fits this vehicle. Mazda did add 4 imitation exhaust pipes to the rear now, though.
So let's look at the engine then. Open up the hood, if I can find the switch. Oh, come on, there it is. So, you can see that it's hiding there somewhere, and there's quite a lot of space in here. But if I open this cover up, it's actually even more surprising because the engine is really far away from the front of the car. That's partly because it's all-wheel drive and how it's laid out, but also all of this space here is because it also needs the space for the 6-cylinder engines. But then you also have all of this space. And the good part about this is, if you do crash, and let's hope you don't, but if you do crash, you will have about, I don't know, 10 minutes of crashing before it actually gets to the engine and you come to a stop. So you'll probably have time to phone your wife and say, "Oh, honey, I'm just going to be late home today. I'm just in the middle of a crash right now. So about 8 more minutes and I'll be coming to a stop. So don't worry about me."
The interior looks similarly elegant and comfortable. The base model features textile seats, while you can also get leather, heating and cooling for them. A large infotainment screen adorns the dashboard, as well as physical climate controls and a fully digital instrument cluster. Even though the instruments are all on display now, there's not much customization options. You can change some of the basic economy information and graphics depending on the chosen driving mode. The fonts are nice and very legible. The heads-up display is now even larger than the previous generation, in color, high resolution, and with plenty of information. Mazda has refused to jump on the capacitive train and retained physical buttons for the infotainment and climate controls. If you've driven modern Mazda models before, then you'll be right at home with the infotainment menu and options, with the difference that everything is on a bigger screen now. You can also see the details of the battery and the electric drive. There are two USB-C plugs in the center console, as well as two more for the rear passengers. They also enjoy one 150-watt plug. In the large trunk, and depending on the chosen equipment level, there's also a 1.5 kilowatt plug which draws power from the battery pack.
One of the really cool things about this Mazda is that it will actually tell you what the best driving position is, because it has a driver recognition system which you set up very easily. You just give it your height and then it scans your face, so it has facial recognition. So every time you sit in, and if you it will set up the driving position for you, how you like it, but also it will give you a recommended driving position that you can then fill with yourself. So that's really nice for example, BMW drivers that are coming to Mazda. So right now the seat is in the BMW position, which means of course you drive like this. And of course you cannot use your blinkers or really see the mirrors. But of course Mazda knows better. So normally, as soon as you would sit in the car, it would recognize you immediately and go to the desired driving position. This time, for some reason, it's not detecting me, probably because the car was not locked, so that's my fault. But now it's basically setting up the driving position to the optimal driving position for my height. And there we go. Suddenly I can actually grab the wheel properly, I can turn it, I can see all the mirrors. It's brilliant. It's not as useful if you're the only sole driver, but if you share this car with the family, with your wife, with your kids, whatever, then this is great, because you don't have to program everything. As soon as you sit in, it immediately recognizes you and sets everything up. It's pretty brilliant. That's not all though. This car has a lot of tech built into it. One, like I said, is that driver recognition system. Then you have matrix LEDs. Some of this is optional. Matrix LEDs, you've got a big infotainment screen, which is really big, the biggest yet in Mazdas. It's very nice, high resolution, looks good. Why is there hot air coming in? I'm hot. This is, no, give me cold air. Then you have this LCD instrument cluster. For the first time, Mazda has decided to ditch the combination LCD display and analog screens, and it's all LCD now. It looks great. The fonts are really nice looking. You can customize it a little bit, and by customize I just mean you press the info button and you change some of the displays here. They also change if you change your drive mode. You've got a sunroof, you've got radars back, front, left, center, right, everywhere. It tells you if cars are coming. You've got a 360-degree view camera, which is really handy. You've got, like I said, it's full of tech, which I suppose if it goes wrong might not be the best idea, but it is very nice to have. Heated seats front, back, ventilated seats at the front, which is really nice. Heated steering wheel. I don't know, there's loads of stuff. Of course, you might have noticed, you probably haven't due to the sound, but this is a plug-in hybrid, like I've already said before, but right now I'm driving on just electric power alone, which is very nice, as always. Driving on electric motors is a very pleasant experience. There's very little sound coming from it. You've got instant torque, and in fact, because this is a plug-in hybrid, so it has a petrol engine or a gas engine and a electric motor, they can both work in unison to accelerate, which means 5.8 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour when using both, which is very, very impressive for a big car like this, which is about 2 tons in this configuration, I think. So it's got a reasonably sized lithium-ion battery, with which I would say right now I have 50% of the battery remaining, and it's saying I'll do about 60 kilometers. I think about 70 kilometers maybe you could do on electric power alone, depending on driving conditions. But the really cool thing is that unlike a lot of cars, you just have one button with this plug-in hybrid where you press it, boom, there we go. And it's already started the engine, and it's now charging the battery using the engine and of course recuperation. So it's very nice that you don't have to go into 1,000 sub-menus for it. Just press the button, that's it. And if I want to go back into EV mode, press it again, there we go. Charging of the battery is now off, and we're back to electric mode only. Perfect. One of the really interesting things about this car is the transmission, or how everything is connected. Because usually when you have a plug-in hybrid, usually you will have an internal combustion engine driving, for example, the front wheels, and there will be an electric motor at the back driving the rear wheels. So essentially you will have some sort of an all-wheel drive system if both systems are working. However, with Mazda, they went a different way. They actually connected both the internal combustion and the electric motor to the transmission, which means that yes, you will have a bit more parasitic loss with the electric motor alone, or the whatever internal combustion engine, because they will both use the transmission. But it doesn't matter whether you're on electric or gas alone or both at the same time, you will always have all-wheel drive. It's quite interesting. It's also quite bizarre because I've driven plenty of electric cars and I'm used to the fact that it's one gear. You press the pedal and that's it, you're going. But here you will actually hear the electric motor change RPMs as the transmission shifts into the next gear, and then into the next and the next. It's got 8 gears forward, so it's really quite interesting and something different. But I have to say, it works, and Mazda's engineers must have calculated, as they usually do for efficiency, that this is more efficient or better, or I don't know what, but anyway, it works and it's very nice. The only thing I would say here, the only minus, is that the automatic transmission tends to be, on rare occasions, a bit too aggressive with the shifts. I don't know exactly why, whether this is some sort of a software thing, but sometimes it shifts a bit roughly. So, but you know, minor complaint, you get used to it. Let's talk about fuel efficiency. Because this is a plug-in hybrid, giving you any numbers about fuel efficiency would be completely useless. Let me explain. When you have a normal car with a regular internal combustion engine, I can give you a number in liters per 100 kilometers. If I have an electric car, I will give you a number in kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Easy, right? And you've got some sort of a reference because you have a feeling of how much usually cars will use of this size and power. But with the plug-in hybrids, it's not really a thing because it can use both. So for example, I can just keep charging it and I will never use any fuel at all. Or I can never charge it and I will use lots more fuel, which by the way is the worst thing you can do with a plug-in hybrid. Never charge it, or just charge it using the internal combustion engine. It will be a lot more inefficient. So I was thinking what to do, and I decided, let's just do the worst case thing. Let's just never charge it. Let's just only charge it with the internal combustion engine. I'll take that back, actually. I charged it once for a couple of hours, or was it like just 1 hour, with a charger, electric charger, and it made a big difference as far as fuel consumption, of course. But yeah, I've decided to go for the worst case scenario, mostly, and give you those numbers. So at the end of the day, I was driving on highways, I was driving through towns and so on, and the car just did its thing. I charged it via the button, so it charged the battery, and then I used the electricity from the battery, and so on. So it was actually quite surprising. The average fuel consumption was 8 liters per 100 kilometers. I know that doesn't sound good, but this is a plug-in hybrid. It's meant to be plugged in. But still, for a large car like this, 8 liters only, when I just keep charging it via the engine, is actually not that bad. And as far as electric consumption, I had about 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now, usually the average, I think, is about 24. So for a car this size, again, this is actually quite impressive. At the end of the day, this is still very much a Mazda, a premium Mazda model, big, comfortable, nice. Like I said, every time I drive a Mazda, it almost sounds like they're paying me to make advertisements for them, and they're not. But they're just very, very, very nice cars. If you've never driven a modern Mazda, please go do so. If you're looking for a car, give them a test ride, because they're really very, very pleasant. Very comfortable, very nice. Everything feels like it's really well put together. The buttons are excellent. I have to applaud Mazda for not following the trends and putting everything on touch, even on the steering wheel. I love the fact that I have really nice, clicky, mechanical buttons, so I don't have to look away from the road all the time. Everything is very nice, like I said. The only two things that I would consider minuses is that the transmission is sometimes slightly rough for some reason, even though this is the second car, because we had some recording problems, not the car, but recording problems, and this one actually feels smoother. So I don't know if it's a fluke or software thing, I'm not sure. Anyway, and the other thing is that it rides a little bit hard sometimes if the road is really damaged. I was expecting it to be a little softer, but it can be a little harsh on the ride on some occasions. But apart from that, I love it. It is such a pleasant, really good-looking car. I completely forgot to mention that also in the center console, you've got 2 USB ports. You've got 2 USB ports here on the back for the passengers in the back. You also have a 150 watt AC plug for whatever. And in the back, in the trunk, you have a 1.5 kilowatt plug AC. So essentially, you could bring a microwave oven, you could bring a toaster, you could bring a fan, whatever. Something that uses 1.5 or less kilowatts of power, as long as you have battery. And I believe that if you do not have enough battery, it'll just start the engine up. So you always have a source of power in the back, which is pretty nice.
Mazda CX-60 with the plug-in hybrid starts at just over 54,000 euros. For the fully loaded model, you'll be paying just over 68,000 euros.